wish the week were a little bit longer because I want 3. No, it's some say this may be one of the best years in the history of this club. I don't believe that because it's got such a great history. But I feel...
What if I told you that an American is changing Brazilian football forever? I know, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? Because we ain't really talking about a Brazilian NFL. We're talking about soccer. And here's the thing. It is true. Why would I lie to you? But he ain't a player. His name is John Textor, and he is the owner of Botafogo. But this story is not all sunshine and rainbows. It's actually an insane roller coaster ride where we're gonna vomit a few times, lose our hats, and it would likely give you anxiety and joy just to hear and experience it. But don't worry, you will survive. The Botafogo fans did, and so will you. So today, we're gonna be talking about Botafogo, John Textor, and how he is changing Brazilian football. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Chapéu Football, where you'll find the best coverage of Brazilian soccer in English on YouTube. Trust me, you won't find a better one. And today I want to talk about John Textor and what he is doing in Brazil. And of course, we're going to have to dive into Botafogo in the process, and they are not my club. I'm a Palmeiras fan, but Botafogo has a special place in my heart. My best friend is a Botafogo fan. My grandfather used to be a Botafogo fan. And for most of my life, Botafogo has kinda sucked. Yeah, that's just a kind way to put it, right? They've been shit for multiple years, multiple decades. We're gonna go through who John Textor is, why he bought Botafogo, his fall, his redemption, and how he's changing Brazilian football forever. Now make sure to subscribe if you enjoy the best Brazilian soccer content in English. Hit the like button because only losers don't hit the like button, and it helps the channel a lot, so thank you very much for that. And let me know in the comment section down below, which is your favorite Brazilian soccer club? And along with letting me know what club you root for in Brazil, let us know topics that you want us to cover in the comment section down below. Brazilian soccer topics, okay? Let's begin. Okay, so before we even talk about how John Textor is changing Brazilian football, we must go through who is John Textor, his fall, and his redemption. So Textor at the time of this recording is actually the owner of Crystal Palace in the English Premier League, Lyon in France, RWD Molenbeek, a team that is currently in the 2nd division of Belgium, and I have no idea why he owns them, and of course, Botafogo, which is the biggest club out of the 4 that I mentioned. So just to oversimplify it, he's a very, very rich guy. He has like a buttload of money. He has more money than me. Probably more money than you, unless you're super rich and you're watching this video for some reason. Or maybe you're John Textor watching this video right now. And if you're John Textor, you definitely don't have more money than John Textor because, you are John Textor. And as I said, Botafogo is the biggest club out of the 4 I mentioned. I was not joking. Botafogo is a historic club in Brazil. And according to Globo Esporte, throughout history, Botafogo is the club that had the most Brazilian players called into the Brazilian national team in World Cups, with 47 total, more than any other club in Brazil. Sure, most of that was a long time ago, mostly in the 50s and 60s. I think even John Kennedy was alive back then. And a lot of that happened during the Garrincha days. But still, this is a massive, historic club with a lot of history in Brazil that has struggled over the past few decades. So why did John Textor buy Botafogo? Why and how? Because here's the thing, the why is pretty obvious. It's essentially to make money, whether it is directly through Botafogo or indirectly through his European clubs. But let's just go through how he got Botafogo and how he even got here. Okay, so John Textor was able to acquire Botafogo due to the SAFI law that was passed through back in 2021. The SAFI essentially allowed all soccer clubs in Brazil that were non-profits to become a new type of limited public company. I'm just gonna oversimplify it for you because we already did a whole video explaining that. It just essentially allowed legally for soccer clubs in Brazil to be privately owned. The soccer club, right? The soccer section of it. And if you want to know how this is affecting football in Brazil, go check out the video, This League Will Be the New Premier League, the one we released a few weeks ago. on our channel, so go check that out. We'll probably put the link in the description. Now, around March of 2022, John Textor bought 90% of Botafogo's SAFI. Through his company, Eagle Holdings, he invested 400 million reais into this purchase. Right now, that's like $70 million. At the time, it was a bit more because the real to dollar ratio was smaller, but the Brazilian currency has devalued quite a bit since. Now, 70 million for Botafogo is pretty cheap, in my opinion. That is a lot less than an MLS franchise, for example. Like, investors, when they get an MLS franchise these days, they're paying 300, 400, or 500 million dollars. So Botafogo was less than a fifth of that. Now, Botafogo has been mediocre or even crap for multiple decades. The club was loaded with debt, and honestly, it was a shit show. And I'm not here saying that John Textor is their savior, but he kinda is. In a matter of 12 to 18 months, Botafogo, or John Textor at least, went from zero to hero. He turned Botafogo into a protagonist in Brazil once again. A club that was probably, prior to John Textor buying it, closer to bankruptcy than to actually winning any meaningful trophies. Botafogo was relegated back in 2020 for the third time in their history, finishing in last place in the Brazilian league. Then they got promoted in 2021, and they were mid-table in 2022. Then they made a massive jump in 2023 and 2024, which were the ones where John Textor was fully in charge of the club. And we're about to talk about that. Okay, we're still not in the section of this video where we talk about how this very competent and very rich American is changing Brazilian football. Before we even talk about that, we have to go through his fall in 2023 and his redemption in 2024. So he took over the club halfway through 2022, so the first full season in charge of Botafogo was in 2023. And boy, this was a wild season for Botafogo. There were a lot of plot twists all over the place. It was like M. Night Shyamalan and Christopher Nolan got together to write the script of Botafogo's 2023 season. The 2023 season starts with Botafogo shitting the bed during their state tournament, the Campeonato Carioca. But that doesn't matter too much because what happens after is one of the craziest stories I have ever witnessed in this sport of soccer. And when it comes to soccer, I have seen it all. I am old and I'm wise. I'm like the Master Yoda of soccer, except for I'm not little or green. I'm like the cool version of Yoda, and definitely taller. So in 2023, Botafogo was off to a hot start in the Brasileirão, which is the Brazilian league, even leading their fans to truly believe the unexpected would happen, that nearly 30 years later, they would finally win the league again, something that hadn't been done since 1995. But then, Cristiano Ronaldo made a call. Wait. Hold on for a second right there. Cristiano Ronaldo? What does Ronaldo have to do with Botafogo and John Textor? You know, there's a saying in Brazil that there are things that only happen to Botafogo. And even Cristiano Ronaldo, all the way from Saudi Arabia, was ready to screw over Botafogo. And boy, did he screw them over. Not too much, just a little bit. So Ronaldo called Luís Castro, the Portuguese coach that was in charge of Botafogo at that time, so that he would come to coach Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia, where Cristiano Ronaldo was playing and is currently playing at the time of this recording. That led to an informed Botafogo to lose their coach in the 12th round of the league while leading the league. But you know what? Here's the thing. Once Castro left, Botafogo stayed red hot. They continued to play very well. They continued to win games. Even though I think that season they went through like 5 or 6 coaches, but at least immediately after he left, they were fine. At first. So it truly seemed like they were actually gonna win the league. They ended the first half of the season with an incredible 47 points in 19 games, breaking the league record. By round 27, with only 11 games to go, Botafogo had a 9-point gap to the second place team, and they had, I believe, a 14-point gap to Palmeiras, which was the team that eventually went on to win the league. But what if I told you that for those last 11 games, Botafogo got 0 wins? Because it's true. Somehow, this team that broke the record of the point record for the first 19 games, they won 0 games in the last 11 rounds. This is truly an insane bottle job. I've never seen this before. Even Arsenal a few seasons ago, it was not this bad. With 5 losses and 6 draws in the last 11 games, they completely collapsed, finishing in 5th place after breaking the points record in the first half of the season, not even finishing in 2nd, finishing in 5th place. Now, probably the most notable moment was a home collapse against Palmeiras, who went on to win the title, where Botafogo had a 3-0 lead at halftime at home. And Palmeiras, led by Endrick, got a historic comeback, a 4-3 win, which set the tone for Palmeiras to win the league. You know, my best friend Endrick led the way for Palmeiras. I'm joking, we're not best friends. We've met, but we're not best friends. But listen, that game actually had a lot more crazy moments. I'm actually underselling it. I don't see the need to dive into all of it in this video. That's not the point, including some controversial calls from the ref, a wasted penalty kick from Botafogo, and then a late goal from Palmeiras to get the 4-3 win at Rio de Janeiro. So you may be wondering, why am I even mentioning this specific game? Well, one, I am a Palmeiras fan, so I like to brag about it. Palmeiras won the league. But most importantly, that game led to John Textor having a viral rant after it. It was an incredible rant that went viral worldwide, and maybe you can watch it right now.
Red card, he changed the game. This is corruption. This is a theft. Please find me, Ronaldo, but you need to resign tomorrow morning. That's what needs to happen. This championship has become a joke. Nobody deserves this. These players from Palmeiras, they don't want to win this way. We don't want to lose this way. It's like 5 games in a row. Gentlemen, you played a good game. It's not your fault, but this is fucking corruption. This has to change. And Ronaldo, you need to resign for the good of the game. It has to be over now. This is theft. Find me. You can red card me. Right? It's my stadium. I'll still be here.
And listen, whether you agree with John Textor's rant or not, it doesn't really matter. Even though, you know, Aguinaldo should probably leave CBF, the Brazilian Federation, that's a different discussion. And yes, there is allegedly a ton of corruption in Brazil. It's part of the culture at this point, unfortunately. But John Textor is outspoken. He isn't afraid to say what he thinks, and I love it. The 2023 collapse was so bad, and I mean, his luck was so bad, John Textor at that point, that John Textor even fell in early 2024 while skateboarding in Saquarema, Rio de Janeiro. And then he broke his elbow. So let's just put it this way, things were not going his way on and off the field, at least in Brazil. It's what they say, when it rains, it pours. But after the storm, there is a rainbow. And I'm gonna cut right to it, because at the rainbow, there's a pot of gold. And 2024 was the greatest year in the history of Botafogo. It truly was. It was the biggest year in the history of Botafogo, and it was the year of John Textor's redemption. Botafogo would go on to bounce back by winning the Brazilian League and the Copa Libertadores for the first time in their history, becoming the 4th team in Brazilian football history to do so. Only Santos in 1962, Santos in 1963, obviously led by Pelé, and Flamengo from 2019 managed to win the league and the Libertadores in the same season. I know in Europe that's pretty common for the team that wins the Champions League to almost always, or most of the time, win the domestic league during the same season. It happens more often, but in Brazil, it's kind of wild. It's just different there. It's much tougher to achieve such an accomplishment, and I'm going to talk about that in a separate video. It's just that it's very tough to be consistently good in Brazil. I'll give you a few quick examples, like Fluminense won the Libertadores in 2023, and in 2024, they almost got relegated in the Brazilian league. Palmeiras, in 20 years, from like 2022 to like 2024, whatever, like 22 years, they managed to win the Libertadores twice. They also won the Brazilian league 3 or 4 times. They won the Brazilian Cup, but during that same time frame, Palmeiras managed to get relegated twice. It's insane. It's like as if Real Madrid won the Champions League like twice, La Liga, but they also got relegated twice over 2 decades. Brazilian football is crazy, and if you're not watching, you're missing out a lot. But that's not the point of this video, because now it's time to hit the main event. What exactly is John Textor doing that is changing Brazilian football forever. Okay, now if you made it this far in the video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe, help us grow, and share this video with your friends from Brazil or anyone that wants to talk about Brazilian soccer in English. So the first thing that John Textor is doing that is changing Brazilian soccer or football forever is that he has proven that a SAF, an SAF, which is a privately owned soccer club in Brazil, can be successful. So ever since the SAF started a few years ago, there have been people that were optimistic about it, but there have also been a lot of skeptics. And honestly, there still are. There's some people that are against it, and to be fair, they have a point. I don't think it's the best route for every single club. Like, for example, Palmeiras and Flamengo, they're very well managed financially. They make some stupid signings here and there, but they're very well managed and they're rich clubs. So they don't really need it. They also have a massive fan base. And those two clubs right there, Palmeiras and Flamengo, in my opinion, nowadays, they're the ceiling of Brazilian football. That's how most clubs should be managed if they don't have a SAF. Now, the SAF, or privately owned clubs, to me, they're tremendous when it goes for small clubs, which helps raise the floor of Brazilian football or the Brazilian leagues. It's also huge for fallen giants that need better management and need investment due to years of corruption and poor management. Now, of course, I can use the example of Cruzeiro that was somewhat saved by Ronaldo R9. Like it or not, he did save them through a SAF. Botafogo with John Textor, a historic club that was essentially broke. But then you also have the SAF of Vasco da Gama in Rio de Janeiro, that the 777 group was crap. It was a disaster. So my point is the SAF is not perfect, and in many occasions it's not the right thing for the club and it can go very poorly. But at the same time, John Textor proved that it can go very well. It's easily the most successful SAF so far in Brazil. So essentially, John Textor is proving that it can be successful and changing that perception, which can and will lead to more investment from private ownership in Brazilian clubs. But Botafogo was broke for a long time and he brought them back to life with the most successful year in the club's history. The SAF ain't perfect, as I said, but in many cases it works and it will play a very big role in Brazilian football for the years to come. He's also showing a ton of ambition with Botafogo right now for the 2025 season. At the time of this recording, Botafogo, under John Textor, has invested nearly 500 million reais in transfers this season. That is roughly $90 million, which is a record in Brazil for a single season. And yes, to me that is a good thing. It improves the product domestically and competitiveness of the league. The Brazilian league continues to grow and get stronger, and John Textor is one of the main reasons why. And again, I did a whole video about the Brazilian league and what's happening there. It's called This League Will Be the New Premier League. Go check it out. We don't have many videos here at the channel, so go check it out if you haven't already. And make sure to share that video too with your friends in Brazil. Now, the second thing that John Textor is doing that can help change Brazilian football forever is he's been very outspoken against corruption. And unfortunately, corruption and the Brazilian culture go hand in hand, right? It's not a good thing. It's not something I'm proud of. It's not something most Brazilians are proud of. But corruption is a major problem there, not just in soccer, but politically speaking, the society as a whole. But in this video, I'm focusing mainly on football, and he's been very outspoken about that. Oh, and trust me, this is very much needed in Brazil, and it's a breath of fresh air. But, you know, we gotta give this man even more credit, John Textor. To go to a foreign country and call them out on their bullshit, it takes balls, like huge balls. Have you ever seen that South Park episode where Randy has huge balls? That's John Textor. The dude has some big balls. And we mentioned his rant after the Palmeiras game. I know calling out corruption on its own doesn't really solve it. Otherwise, Brazil would have had all its problems solved by now. But it matters. And the more influential club owners and presidents that do so, the better it is for Brazil as a whole. Last but not least, the third thing that he is doing that's helping change Brazilian football forever is he is one of the leaders on a movement to start a new domestic league. Let me explain. They want to change completely the structure of the Brasileirão, which it's actually going to happen. It's a matter of when, not if. So the Brasileirão, the Brazilian league, is currently controlled by CBF, the federation. And there are two groups of clubs that want to take control over that, freeing the domestic league from CBF and their clause. These two groups are called Libra and Liga Forte União. Botafogo, more specifically, is with Liga Forte União. Now look, these two groups don't really need to become one for the clubs to take control of the domestic league, but John Textor is one of the few that is leading the way to take it from CBF. And as he said himself on Instagram, he said CBF is not capable of managing our Brasileirão. We must form the league. CBF is a shit show. Their refs or the referees are shit. They don't really invest in their own product. They don't really think long term. As a matter of fact, I don't really think they think at all. There's likely a ton of corruption there as well, and they just suck the money away from the clubs. So the clubs must free the Brasileirão from CBF if they want to profit and make it much better, the overall product. John Textor is an outsider and a club owner, a foreigner helping take down the current broken structure and dirty politics of Brazilian soccer. Once that is done, it'll change forever. It has to follow more or less what the Premier League is, right? Where the clubs are in charge of the league and not the federation. Now, when that happens, CBF will probably still be in charge of the Brazilian Cup, but they will no longer be in charge of the Brazilian League. And like I said, it will happen. It's a matter of when, not if. Alright everyone, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go and to subscribe to the channel. Once again, we will grow faster with your help. If you share our videos, like our videos, and comment, it'll give us a boost and more people will find us and we'll grow faster. And the faster we grow, the more content we will make. I want to thank you all very much for watching. I want to thank you all for all the support. Welcome to Chapéu Football and have a great day.